Hey everyone, Jim Phoenix here, and in this episode of What's Cracking, we have Dominique Mann, and we're going to talk about small towns and the hauntings and horrors that can go on psychologically and paranormally. All this and more, and that's What's Cracking. Hit it. Hey everyone, Jim Phoenix here, and today we've got Dominique Mann. That's right. We're going to talk about small town, big town, all sorts of towns, and spooky stuff. I have to admit, I saw your stuff online and it blows my mind away.
Thank
I
you.
want to thank you for being talented. That thank goes to you for that one. I love that you're digging into the smaller towns. What inspired you to go small?
Sure. So I grew up in a small town, and my sort of safe haven was a small town. So I grew up in New England, in a small town in Massachusetts
Oh,
outside of
wow.
Boston, and an even smaller town my grandfather lived in Connecticut. And Connecticut's very spooky. And so my grandfather would just get thrills from scaring me as a kid, and I wasn't scared. I was like, do it more. And
More.
and I think small towns, not only did they provide the inspiration for like the horror short stories I would write, but also it provides a level of intimacy, to really understand humanity, especially like if you're consuming horror, for example, and you can really see the dynamics between different people because it's such a
Right.
controlled space. And so that's why it's just nostalgia, what I grew up in, and it inspired me so much to just write and tell stories.
That's a great idea connecting those two. It's like the monster in the house to control space is a small town.
Yes.
And think about it, a lot of small towns are isolated, so they can't like, I'm gonna get out of here. Like, you can't.
Yeah. I love that premise of like I know this sounds so dark, but that you're
Yeah.
trapped, you can't get out, of a small
Yeah.
town, and there you can't leave. Like that's why I'm into the show From on Amazon and MGM Plus right now, because it's like that exact premise of like a small town that you can't leave. It plays on
Really?
so many horrors. Yeah, it's a really great show.
Oh, I need to check that out.
Yeah, and then at night, monsters come out unless you have a talisman in your window, and they're monsters disguised as humans that smile at you and try to goad you into coming outside your house.
Oh, wow, that's
And then they
creepy.
maul you to death if you let them in. Because once
Uh,
you invite them in, all of them can come in.
it's stranger danger all over again. It is a
Yeah,
small town fear of
basically,
like the outsider.
and they target people like, for example, kids. For if you have a kid, you have to board up your window because the kid is more susceptible to being deceived. So it'll be like this like old lady like who's obviously a monster like
Yeah.
knocking on the window, which of course is creepy in and of itself. But the kid doesn't know any better. So then the kid looks and it's like, and a woman will be like, "Oh, it's Nana! Come out, it's Nana!" And you know what happens after that. So it's like it's just man, it's a good show.
I love that concept of it. And when you said small town and can't leave, I thought it meant all my friends from high school.
Oh, I actually
Which is
meant that layer too because
oh,
good horror also touches on your deeper fears of like everyday life. We consume horror to face
right.
to process the fears that we face in our everyday lives. And so I had that fear growing up, even though small town environments inspired me. I was so eager to leave my small town to experience the world because I didn't want to be trapped in it
Right.
emotionally. Even though my family's still there and I still love small town stuff, so it's not an aversion to it. It's just that I had this like itch to experience the world, and I didn't want to be limited by the neighborhood and the block that I grew up on.
Yeah, I think if anyone's from a small town, it's very identifiable. It's the you'll go back. You're not like ashamed, but
Yes.
man,
Yeah.
you want like something that's open past 8 a.m. or 8 a.m. 8 p.m. Like, yeah, it's 8 p.m.
Exactly.
Like the store closed down. Like there's only one. So
And you
that's
have
that's
those
when you know.
friends who did stay there and they're asking you the same questions they did 10 years ago. Like, you want to go to this spot and get, some
Yeah.
Chinese food. It's like, it's like a loop,
You wanna cruise
and
down in your
yeah,
car, driving
exactly.
around for the
Exactly.
party.
I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I want to evolve as a human. So I appreciate it
Oh,
though.
man. I full disclosure, I remember when we had a McDonald's. That was big news. You have
Yeah.
McDonald's
Yes,
now?
yes, yes. That
Oh
was a
my god.
treat growing up for me, like
Yeah.
the toy and like, like
Oh, yeah.
everything.
That's the thing, it's a treat, and that's exactly what it was back then, a treat. Now it's like the everyday occurrence in the
Yeah.
small town life.
Yeah. Exactly.
sometimes keeps us grounded more. Now, I understand that small towns can be scary, and your grandfather tried to scare you?
Yeah, so he would even when I was like really young, like 6 years old, it just like grew up around that. So we would watch the original Wizard of Oz, and and
Oh,
then it would be dark in our like small one floor home that
yeah.
he built. So he knew all the nooks and crannies and where to hide. And so right when the part when either the witch or definitely the flying monkeys, he would sneak outside, and then the TV was in front of a window, and then he'd just start banging on the window, and then and we
Oh
would
my god.
scream, or he would get on all fours and like, it's just like you would see like in The Grudge or The Ring, he would just get on all fours and chase. I know, weird. Like it seems weird. Why would you do that to a little kid? But he knew I loved it, and I would just laugh. And I was like, when can I be scared next, right?
Scare
But
me
the Wizard
again.
of Oz flying monkey scene, him banging on the window like that would always do me in every time.
It's for those who never watched the original Wizard of Oz, it back then, kids' movies were terrifying.
Yes, they were.
Like, Disney was not playing like, "No, MGM, we're not we want kids screaming,
Yes, exactly.
forever scarred." And for him to do that, that's funny because 'cause I'm having flashbacks, I'm like, "Yeah, that scared me."
Yeah,
'Cause
it
the
is
flying
scary.
monkey king is scary enough, but to have the boom, 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 creepy, creepy, creepy. So that's where you got your love from horror from, is your grandfather?
Is I would say, yeah, my grandfather, and the fact that he encouraged me when I would write short stories about horror. Like I was creating characters with weird names like Addison Foster. I probably saw it in a show or something. And I was like 10 years old, and I would just sit there and start writing because it was so dark outside in this small Connecticut town.
Right.
Our house was right in front of his house was in front of the woods. And
Yeah.
so I would write. And then whenever time I'd write, he'd be like, oh my gosh, you write so much.
Oh,
And
good.
I'd be like, okay, so I like this feedback. So I'm going to keep doing it. And it kind of just grew from there. So I guess, yeah, now that I think about it, it would be my grandfather who inspired um, horror and the layers of it that bring me so much joy, and it's so much fun.
That's an amazing thing, and we're just talking about this in theory before, where if you encourage a child's imagination, they will
Yes,
spark it forever. As soon as you say, "No, that's not how it goes," you kill that child's imagination forever.
exactly. Oh, that's a really great point. That's exactly
Yeah.
what he did for me. It was imagining possibilities on a small plot of land,
Right.
and little things like if there was a hole in a rock, which is like weird but normal at the same time. I don't know. And I would like put my finger in the hole because I'm curious about it, and then
Yeah.
he would just like act like a snake was there. And was like, ah! And then I would freak out. So like his small little house was just this like constant adventure and imagination. Even though when you look at it now, it's like, okay, this is it's a very tiny space, but it was so much more to me.
Magical. Did you ever hide underneath the table? Or am I the
No,
weirdo? I'm the weirdo?
no,
Okay.
he would find me,
Oh, he was
unless
fine.
unless it was a tablecloth. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And also I think I like having control in situations, even though you can't always. And so the idea of hiding under beds or under things where you can't see what's like around you, like that would,
Right.
like that. I like to be able to see what the threat is. You know what I'm saying? Like
Me too. I never understood, like, hide under the bed. That's where the monster lives. What do you mean
exactly.
hide under the bed?
I also watch. If you remember, I don't know if anyone remembers this Disney Channel show that had no business being on Disney. That Don't Look Under the Bed, and it
Really?
was it was so it played, obviously Disney Channel's for kids, so it plays on kids' worst nightmares, and it's a boogeyman, but not like some cartoonish like fun boogeyman. I mean like really, really like
Really?
deformed and like grotesque, and it had these long fingernails, and it would like its claws would just like come
Whoa.
up from underneath the bed, and they really were trying. It was like kid horror, and then I'm like, but I loved it. You know what I'm saying? And so to me though, that lesson learned: don't hide under the bed.
Yeah,
You know
bad things happen there. If you can float above your bed and sleep, even better. It
exactly.
yeah, Disney Channel, like, "What? Something wicked this way comes." Uh, although bread knobs, bed knobs and
Bed
broomsticks,
knobs and broomsticks. Yeah, I remember that.
that was amazing little psychedelic movie. I watched it again as an adult. I'm like, how did that pick up as a kid? Like, she's like, "Yeah, come on, kids, we're gonna fly this bed over to like Animal Kingdom Island and have everyone that we kind of already drew out for different stories in Disney appear in this movie." And then like the psychedelic scene happens. Like, wow.
Yeah, that one. It's been a long time since I've seen that one, so I don't remember. I do remember being spooked by that.
Yeah.
But even like remember the Olsen twins, and they were like big,
Oh,
but they had this movie that was Double Toil and Trouble, I think.
yes.
And you would think it's like cute little twins, Halloween. It was dark. I was scared of that movie. I
Yeah.
couldn't stop watching it, but I was scared. Like that old woman, Agatha, who I think her name was Agatha. I'm not even sure, but it was like she was a witch. And I just remember, I don't know, it's like that, like jump scares, everything. So it was not like a, it was kid horror was a genre in the 90s, I feel.
Right. I think we've gone away from that now. I'm looking at a lot of the kids stuff right
Yeah.
now. It's like for kids. But you're right. The 90s, we grew up with Freddy Krueger, whose
Yes.
mission in life was to kill little kids in their sleep.
Exactly.
And that was like targeted at like, oh, you're 12? Watch this. Like,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
you'll never sleep again. Like, you will never sleep again. You're
No,
right. That's a
nope.
good rhyme.
I
And
watched
now, yeah.
I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
No. And now we're doing other things. What did you watch? What did you watch?
The Sixth Sense at a fourth grade birthday party.
Fourth grade?
Yes, I don't
Fourth
know
grade?
what parent signed off on it, and I'm just
Oh
like,
my
the idea that like only was it the kid who it was the kid who can only see dead people, and
Yes.
you only see them when you're alone. That was nightmares for me.
Oh,
I
that's
know.
gonna be creepy. It's like fourth grade. Yes, this Bruce Willis movie. That's
Yeah,
gonna be fun.
exactly. It's like it's only when you're alone.
Yes.
Like that creeped me out so much.
So now I have to ask: have you seen Ghosts as a kid?
So I am hesitate because I think I have, but I'm
Really?
not sure. I think the as I got older and the rational quote rational side, whatever however you define
Right.
rational, was like no. But I just had a very vivid. There was this. I thought it was a nightmare, like just a vivid nightmare
Really?
of this like man wearing my dad's t-shirt. It was not my dad. Like wearing
Whoa.
this like purple t-shirt just standing in the hallway. And I just remember like I like looked up and then he looked at me and then I just like pretended I was asleep and I got so scared. And
Wow.
I remember that. And it's different because you think, okay, you were dreaming or nightmare, but I
Right.
know I've had some very vivid nightmares where I can tell you the details.
Right.
This felt different. This felt like I was awake, and so still up for debate. Could have been just the most vivid nightmare I've ever had, or I don't know if it was ghosts of my father's past. I don't know. I
Could
really don't
be.
know. Could be.
Yeah.
And then actually in adulthood, I had an eerie experience that
Really.
I got confirmation that someone else in the hotel I was staying in experienced it too. But that's not when I was a kid.
So, do you tell people about these things?
I don't think I think the kid one I didn't tell because I if I maybe I told my mom at the time because I
Right.
thought that she'd be like, oh, okay, you had a bad dream, but like later in life I don't think of an occasion where I volunteer it unless we have an explicit conversation like have you seen a ghost? And even then, that one when I was a kid I don't mention, but I share the one where more recently where like I heard noises in a hotel and like a rocking chair above me, and go
Really?
down to the front desk the next day and said no one was above the room above me that night, and talk to other people in the hotel like, did you experience this too? And they're like, yeah, we heard some weird shit. Sorry, I don't know if you can swear on this.
Oh, we just did.
Okay, I'm sorry, you
No,
can edit it out.
yeah, no, Joe Bob Briggs took that away when he did the F bomb. It's like, we're
Okay,
all good after this. Yeah. We
yeah,
earned that explicit label. Yeah, it's amazing when you're staying at these hotels because you think about all the people who come through these places
yes.
and some of them don't leave.
That's what, and what was eerie about it is that, so it was in Mississippi. Why I was in Mississippi, it was some kind. So my grandfather obviously was important to me,
Right.
and years after he passed away, I wanted to trace his roots in Mississippi because he was pushed up north because of the largest flood in American history, the
Oh, wow.
1927 flood, and he luckily escaped. Like the Red Cross evacuated him. He was a sharecropper in Mississippi, but not everyone survived. So
Right.
it turns out the hotel. I wanted to trace his roots, go to the Flood Museum, this tiny little shack of a museum, and the only hotel that was available. It was right where the levee broke, and they
Oh,
would house people who were struggling. Some died, or who were like needed medical attention in the levee building. And the levee building became the hotel. So that's what made me think like these are some restless spirits. Someone who did them wrong did not evacuate them. You
Yeah.
know, there was a lot of injustice during the flood in terms of who got saved and who did not. But so it just I first I heard scratching on the walls. I'm like, okay, well, it's a storm. And of course, it's like a flood worthy storm the night I get
Right.
there. And I'm like, is it a rat? Like, it was just scratching but in the middle of the night, and I like couldn't sleep. I was really upset at the people above me. Like, I was like, who is rocking? There's no
Why is
rocking
it
chair.
shocking?
And then I heard a kid running up and down. I assumed it was a kid because who would be
Yeah.
running up and back and forth? And I'm like, just so irresponsible. This is like, I can't sleep. And then I went to go complain, and they said, ma'am, there was no one above you that night.
Oh my gosh.
And I was just, and so that made me think that's hard. I have to challenge like what I think is rational, because I know what I experience, and that
Right.
building has a history. They didn't just like build a new, like this, that hotel was literally the levee building where people died or they were getting medical attention because of the flood's destruction in 1927.
Yeah. No, when I hear those stories, I'm like, nope, not staying there.
No.
This is the only hotel. Like, I don't know, man. I'm camping outside. It's a big storm. Oh, okay. I guess I will. You know.
Yeah, yeah. Even the people at the front desk were like, "Don't tell me this. I don't want to hear this." Like,
Yeah.
and it's like they
Right.
accepted it. They weren't like, "Okay, she's a little off." They were like, you know, this sounds like what I've been hearing. I don't want to hear it because I need a job and I need to
Yeah.
work here."
I need to work here. It's at night. It's scary enough. I
Yeah,
don't need
yeah. I don't
that.
want to hear confirmation of the fears that I already know exist. So,
Oh man. When you're going through this and your rational mind's like, no, it has to be, when you hear this scratching at the door, you think, especially during storm, it's gotta be a rat or a field
exactly.
mouse trying to get in,
Yeah, exactly.
and then you don't see anything, and then you hear this stuff above you, and you get the confirmation there was nothing at all above you.
You know.
Is that a place you wanna go back to?
Majority of me says no, but there is that small part of me that's like, I kind of do. I don't
Yeah.
think I would stay there at night unless I was with company. I don't know, because it's almost like this need for validation. Like, did I really experience that? But of course, I'm the person in all those horror movies that gets got, that gets like dies because they're too curious. And I always judge
Yeah.
those people like, what? Why would you do that? Why would you go into the basement right now and when it's dark, when you heard something? And I say that, and I grew up in a family where we're like, oh no, like I don't know if I believe in ghosts, but we will not entertain this just to find out. But I would be lying if I said there wasn't a small part of me that does want to explore
Gotta
and
find
see
out.
and validate what I experienced or not.
You gotta find out, and those experiences make us, and I do believe what you're making now is that based on an experience you've had.
Yes, I mean it's based on a series of experiences I've had, particularly in small towns, and the fact that I see connection between horror and our history, whether it's like
Right.
literal history and like Ghost with Unfinished Business, or like just shows like Sleepy Hollow, where literally the ghost.
Ichabod Crane.
Yeah,
Even the cartoon version was scary.
yeah, I refuse to watch. I mean, maybe I will, but even the cartoon version was scary,
Yeah.
and then the remake, I think it was for Fox, like that was
Yes.
scary. And all the through line that people miss sometimes is that it is history, like haunted houses. It's a house with a
Yeah.
history. And so what I'm currently exploring a project that I'm going to start as a short film and try to sort of gate it around the story around a short format. But the longer format is basically like, because I have a background in politics and organizing and stuff, I want
Right.
to write what I know, and I think that increases my chances too of people taking the voice
Yes.
seriously. But
Yes.
the premise is that after a grassroots organizer disappears in a small Connecticut town, um, you know, a, a diner host, a mental health advocate, land surveyor, and ex White House aide search for answers. And the White House part, because it's like, I don't want to lean too much into government conspiracy things in this
Right.
climate, but it's more of like anything that represents institutions. But of
Yeah.
course, when they go to this small town, they find more than they imagined, and they have to
Oh,
confront the town's mysterious customs. Think The Lottery, if you all know that short story. Fewer hours of sunlight each day, an eerie
wow.
surrounding
Yeah.
forest, a swaying presence in the trees, an abandoned schoolhouse at the edge of town, which I have experienced in Connecticut. really eerie red schoolhouse that my grandfather would go to as a kid, but we would visit there when it was abandoned. I don't know why we would did on
All
our walks
creepy
we would visit
stuff.
an abandoned. Yeah, so what drives the story forward is like, what is this town's secret plot? What's their deal?
Yeah,
What are these horrors that are unfolding, and they're in conflict with the town, and the characters, meanwhile, of course, I like good horror intersects with like what makes us human and what we're all seeking, and so the
right.
characters are seeking belonging, connectedness in a world that feels disconnected, and I want to show that through a small town, horror story.
I love that idea. I especially love a small town. One of the things, if you are in a major big metropolis, if you're on LA, for example,
Yeah,
if something bad happens, you've got neighbors. They're all
exactly. Someone's gonna
like,
know about it.
someone's
Yeah.
gonna know almost immediately if something bad is happening. It happens all the time. If you're in a small town, ain't no one finding out.
Yeah, exactly.
You're
Like
on your own.
no street lights,
Yeah,
you
right. There's no
know.
streetlights. Oh, no pavement for half the time. You're in the middle of a forest.
Exactly. Exactly.
So it brings the element like where's your house? Well, it's a third tree on the left.
Yeah.
You go there,
Yeah.
and you drive down another hour and a half, and that's where the driveway is going to start. However, like God,
Yeah. And like
easy.
buildings tend to be like, because of infrastructure issues, issues probably with the town. Like buildings
You're
don't
right.
get like versus a city. Like unless the city's really struggling, if there's an empty storefront, someone's going to buy it up quickly. And if there's real estate agents are struggling to sell it, they're developers will bring down the price or whatever it is.
Right.
Small towns, it's like it could go abandoned for a minute, like for a while. And
Yeah.
so I often see like the ghosts of a diner from like decades ago that I'm like, y'all didn't just tear it down, like, and it's just there. Maybe they're scared to tear it down. I don't know. But in
Maybe.
small towns, there's not as much investment in, like the houses and the buildings to make them
None.
look like people live here, and so that's eerie. And yes, you feel isolated. You're always an outsider to whatever is existing there. I don't know. It's like
Yes.
it's just yeah. If something happens, it's like if a tree falls in a forest and no one's there to see it, did it happen? So it's the idea of something happening and no one knows about it. Like
That's
you know,
you hit it on the head. You're always an outsider. If you were not 12th generation in that small town,
exactly.
you are an outsider.
Yep.
You're no longer trusted, and then you're being attacked on two fronts from the inside and the outside as well. And it's trying to bring that rational world to a small town thing where things could be completely insidious happening.
Exactly. And they live in an echo chamber of like, how often are they leaving
Whoa.
that small town? You know what I'm saying? To go, do they know the world has changed? Do they think certain things are normal like they were? That's why I
True.
believe that short story about the lottery spoiler, and feel free to edit this out if people want to go read it. This idyllic town turns out that their sort of lottery is not what you think it is. The lottery is they stone people to death. And if you get
Winners.
picked, yeah,
Wow.
if you win, you get stoned to death
Yeah.
in
It's
front of
like
the
the
whole town.
island.
And even though it seems outlandish given human history, right? But also the fact that if you're in a small town, if that was the norm for like centuries ago or whatever, or even sooner,
Yeah.
if you don't have anything gut checking you to be like, okay, this is pretty bad actually, then like that's just normal for you. And so to me, I'm very curious about what are those customs in the town that get normalized, haven't changed over the years, and
Absolutely.
just exists in this echo chamber of that town.
Yeah, and the echo chamber part is correct. When anyone leaves a small town, I went to Vegas, I guess, and I was like, "Wow, all those things I thought growing up, completely wrong." Completely wrong. There's like
Yeah,
you find a whole new world out there, and if you
exactly.
stay in that small town, you go back. If you go back talking to your friends, you almost have to talk to as a different dialect,
Yep.
and the words themselves, like it's weird learning up, so I can see the connection with the small town. It does make a great story background, especially if you have people that small towners will not trust the government,
Yep.
will not trust that person. They will not trust the authorities, right? Because they are
Yep.
in their like you said, echo chamber. I like to say like in a little bubble. So without giving anything away for your story, when you're going through the human aspects of it, does it necessarily have to be mystical evil, or is it also a small town mentality that could work against, keep the secrets to
Yeah.
themselves?
I I want to intentionally through my story. I think good horror, or at least the direction we should move horror in as a genre, is to interrogate what is actually the real horrors,
Yeah.
right? And so I want, and through my story, you're gonna, even though the horrors in the forest are scary and eerie, it almost, you'll get sort of distracted by that, but then slowly but surely the town is becoming more weird to you than you thought, and so then it sneaks up on you, and then you kind of realize, well, maybe the town is actually more horrifying than what's out there, right? And so I think that's something that I really wanted to play with in my story, is this idea and like interrogating what is the real horrors, and the interplay between the things that the townspeople decide to do and normalize with, in conflict with the forest. And who knows? I'm not saying this will happen, but maybe the forest exists because the town did something pretty bad, and
Yeah.
it's a consequence that they have to face, and the town doesn't. So they try to suppress the forest. Doesn't mean this forest isn't scary, but you got to look at its root causes for the why it exists the way it does.
I love that idea because we always see things like the American Jeremiah and everyone, go west, young man, and
Yeah.
go on populace. And that was pushing some ideologies through the United States when it was a lot of like the forests are brand new. These are
Yep.
undiscovered, yet someone's already living here country. I was like, hey, wait a minute. We won't count that. But when they started to try to take over those lands, the land sometimes pushes back. And we
I
hear
love
where
that. Yeah.
the expeditions just go missing. And we don't know if something personal will happen to them or is just the land saying, we've had enough.
Yep.
And you kind of grow up in those things. Now, if you could give the young version of you who's writing that very first short story advice, what would you give the advice? What advice would you give?
Oh, I love this question. I don't want to sound cliche with this, but
Mm.
don't give up imagining or creating. Yeah, don't give up your imagination and sense of wonder and curiosity about the world, because as we get older, and there are certain norms that get imposed on us, whether healthy or unhealthy, many unhealthy in today's society,
Oh
especially
yeah.
in the age of social media and and such. That I think it stifles our sense of creativity and imagination. Like, what if? And I would tell her, even though this young version of me already has that imagination, that young me was also dealing with stuff in school, like bullying and other things. And I would tell her that, I mean, it gets better. That's number one. And to continue to create these worlds that are fun, imaginative, and yes, scary, because maybe you'll create a sense of belonging for other people, and then you'll have it for yourself. I would translate it differently for a young version of me, because I don't think she would
Right.
understand what I just said. But
Right.
essentially, just, I would say, keep dreaming, keep imagining. People want to join the world you're building. Because
That's it.
doing so, you're creating belonging for other people.
Yep. I agree 100%. That is the magic of it. Keeping your imagination and keeping the wonder of the world still alive, especially
Yes.
in today's age of cynicism and everything's quick. I think building that world for other people to enjoy because
Yep.
they need it. They need this world to be built. And that's perfect advice to younger you. And look at
Yeah.
this. I have to say this has been fun. It's I when I see small town, I'm like, yes, I can talk about
I've
things that
had so much fun. I can't have this conversation all the time about small towns with people. So, like, I was so thrilled when you got back to me about this. I was like, oh my
I
gosh,
love it.
yes, finally, I can really like dig deep into the small town, the layers of why they're so fascinating, and why there's a reason why they're so popular across genres.
Right.
Mystery and true crime,
Yeah,
and just magical realism and sci-fi fantasy. Small towns are always it for a reason.
they are because this is where the invasion happens. Small
Yep.
town
Yep.
USA. It could be ghosts, it could be aliens, but this is we're coming here first. And growing up in a small town, we've all had stories.
Yes,
We've all
we've
had
all
stories,
done. Even the most quote rational person, my
right?
uncle included, he's had some eerie experiences in that Connecticut town that he grew up in. I mean, Connecticut house, the same house.
Right.
So it's a real thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And keep believing, keep reading, and I look forward. I want to see this when you get it all spiffy and you get it all on screen. Let me know. I want to review. I want to enjoy your version of the small town. I do.
Oh, thank you so much. That
Want to get
feels
into it.
makes me feel so good, and I hope that for you and for your listeners too, it creates the escapism. That is, escapism has this bad name to it. Like you think it's you're not in reality. No,
No.
escapism makes you bring out the best parts of yourself and to have a safe space to imagine, dream, be
Right.
creative, be scared, and feel the full range of your emotions. So I hope to create that, and I will most certainly keep you updated on that.
Please
And
do.
yeah, thank you for hosting me today.
Oh, thanks for coming. Thanks for coming. And because where I am is going to be Thanksgiving, I think tomorrow, I guess.
Yes. Yeah,
Happy
okay.
Thanksgiving for me to early Thanksgiving for you, I guess. And
Yes.
that's how time works. Thank you again, Dominique Mann. Where can we find you on social media? Speaking of the evil
I'm
social
primarily on Instagram, so Dominique J Mann, DOMINIQUE I say
media.
that because people spell Dominique differently. So yeah, Dominique J Mann. That's just it.
I love it. And Instagram is the perfect, especially for horror.
Oh
Small
yes.
town
Oh
horror.
yes.
Oh,
Halloween. My Instagram's just gonna be of like grotesque images. So beware.
be aware. I'm going to be there.
You'll
That's
be
that's
there.
that's
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that's why I love it. Well, thanks again, Dominique. It's been lovely. And for everyone at home, good day. Oh, that's Paul Harvey. That is small town then. Ooh, Paul Harvey. Bye, everyone.